Thank you, Ellie. And it really is good to be with you talking about the chaos in the world around us and maybe going beyond the chaos and realizing it's not quite as chaotic as it first appears. Many years ago, an author, Ernest Hemingway, wrote a story, The Sun Also Rises. And in this fictional novel, two characters speak to each other. A young man asks an older man, "How does somebody go bankrupt?" And the answer, and you might be familiar with this as a financial advisor, the answer was slowly, 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 and then very quickly. I think that that is a great summary of where we find ourselves in the world. This is that graph, right? It's that slowly, 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 and then very quickly. Sometimes the economists call this the hockey stick graph. And well, you're an advisor, you look at numbers all the time, you'll realize that this graph has no axes on it because it could actually refer to many things in the world at the moment. For example, a graph that shows average life expectancy. Over the course of human history, most people have lived into their 50s. In our lifetimes, life expectancy has been increasing. You might not believe this, but life expectancy is increasing at 1.5 days every week. If you make it to Saturday, and I don't know what kind of week you're having, so maybe it's an if, but if you get to Saturday, you will have added another day and a half to your life. Sadly, you can't take it this weekend. It gets added right at the end. But what that means is, if you're in your 50s or 60s, you should expect to easily make your 90th birthday. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you should be planning for 100 years. Now, this hasn't quite yet made it into our financial planning world yet, has it? Because slowly, 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 and now very fast, life expectancy is a good example of that. Another example could just be the natural world around us. This could be a graph of average world temperatures over the last few hundred years, where basically we've been in a good balance with the world around us, we being human beings over centuries. But again, in our lifetimes, we have begun to see a dramatic uptick in a number of fairly alarming factors. You can see in the graphic here, it could be extreme weather conditions. Let me give you some actual numbers related to that. Just 15 years ago, the United States experienced a $1 billion extreme weather insurance event. Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful. But a tornado, a hurricane, a fire that had more than $1 billion worth of damage. That happened about once every 18 months. That was 15 years ago. In 2023 and 2024, one of those happened every 26 days. Slowly, 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 and then very quickly things change. So whether it's extreme weather or temperatures, average temperatures getting higher, whether it's rainfall, if you're in Gauteng, to wave a little flag above the wet weather that we've had recently, whether it's in pollution, air quality, plastic pollution, whether it's just in the impact of pandemics. Can you believe it's the 5th anniversary already of all of that lockdown? We are at a time where we are experiencing things like aging that no human has ever experienced before. That's quite a thought, isn't it? That we are living at a time in history, at a moment in time, that no other human beings have ever experienced. One final example of my slowly, 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 then quickly graph could be computing power, technology. Now, this one, if you know anything about Moore's law, this one might be a little bit incorrect because computing power has just been increasing, doubling in capacity every 18 months for all of our lifetimes. So maybe it's not so much computing power, but more the hype related, especially, of course, to generative AI over the last 2 years. But however we look at it, we live in a world of deep structural change. That's my definition of disruption. It's not just that things change. Things always change. Things have always changed throughout history. But right now, where we find ourselves, we are experiencing unprecedented shifts in every part of society, from politics to economics, from culture even to religion. We are seeing things change dramatically. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that we find ourselves at a crossroads in human history. Historians will look back and study this moment in time. But this is the point of this webinar. I don't think it is quite as chaotic as it appears. If we keep our eyes open, if we remain focused on the important stuff, that crossroads is actually plotted on a map. And I want to show you what I mean. Because if we understand the map, if we understand the direction in which this change is taking us, that's going to obviously allow us to be just a little bit calmer, maybe, than some of us are at the moment. And when it comes to thinking about our money and our investments and our planning for retirement and our wealth management, well, a little bit of calm is going to go a long way, I would suggest. So let's craft a little bit of calm in the chaos of all of this change. And I want to suggest 3 examples that will help us. If we had the whole week together, I could give you 100 more. But let's pick just 3 to prove this point that I don't think it's quite as chaotic as it appears. The first of those, let's call it geopolitics. And if we're talking about the chaos, well, then we've got to go to, I suppose, a possibly surprising place. Who knew that America could just go crazy as it has gone? Donald Trump is not even president for 100 days yet, and he's moving at pace. I don't know you, you might not even know me, and we don't have a chance to discuss this over a good biltong and braai. So I'm going to be a little bit careful to not be incendiary in my comments about the American president. But whatever you do or don't think about Donald Trump, let's give him at least this little bit of credit. He told us what he was going to do. He's doing what he said he would do, and he's doing it with chias. American. He's doing it with gas. Foot to the pedal and pedal to the metal. And yeah, a lot of things did need changing. The systems were not delivering a better life for all. And he promised that he would come in and blow the system up and then see what would happen with the pieces and see what we could build after that. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Project 2025. It was put together by a group of people in a very conservative think tank called the Heritage Foundation. It's a 930-something page document. You can download it. In fact, I'll make your life a little bit easier. Go and check this website out, project2025.observer. It's a literal real-time tracking of the over 300 commitments or focus areas that the Project 2025 document had, and it tracks how Donald Trump's administration is actually implementing them. Now, the reason I say this is my team, which is essentially a team of researchers looking at the future of work, we've been tracking this for a long time. In fact, more than nearly 10 years ago, our team actually predicted that Donald Trump would win that first election. That was a very unpopular and fringe opinion back then, not because we wanted him to, but because we just had a sense that his message of change would resonate with the average American. Not the average wealthy American, but the average American. And we were right, and we were right again when we predicted he'd win this second time. And that Project 2025 is the plan. And those people, like myself, who have been watching the plan and reading the plan, maybe we're surprised by the speed and the uh, depth of feeling behind some of the things, especially the anti-foreigner and anti-Palestine views, but we're not surprised. And that's part of the key, right? If we are needing to keep our eyes open to see what's changing in the world, well, then we need to keep our eyes open and not just hope that the world keeps going the way that it was, but realize that in this world, the world of 2025, where we have global technologies, where we have globalization and international media and the reach of global institutions, it is in fact possible for a small group of people to make a very big impact and change in the world. We know what Donald Trump's trying to do. We can track him doing it in real time. And if we've got our heads screwed on well, we'd be able to anticipate what he's going to do next and what the impact that will be on our industries, our markets, and our investments. But I don't want to just get stuck in America, because if you understand Project 2025, well, let's go to the other side of the world and look at another country that's also had a Project 2025. Just a few weeks ago in China, they held what they call their Two Sessions Conference. Now, this is as important, if not more important, than what happens in the White House every week. But have you heard about this in the news media? I haven't really. You've got to be quite switched on to realize what's happening in Chinese politics. But here is what happens in Chinese politics. Every 5 years, the Chinese government sets out a plan, an agenda for the next 5 years. They are currently just finishing their China 2025 plan. It's their 14th 5-year plan since the starting of the People's Republic of China. And did you know this? That in the last 14 5-year plans, China has hit every single target they've ever set for themselves. They build it into their constitution. It goes all the way down to the local municipal level. And when they commit to doing something, they deliver. And they hold themselves accountable for doing it. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we lived in a country with a government that would do that level of detail? And just a few weeks ago, China released their 2035 plan. It's probably too small on your screen to read. That's not the point. You don't have to look at the detail. But just to show you, there is detail available. Quick Google search and you'll find the China 2035 objectives. And by the way, they've also released their China 2049 plans, which will be the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. The reason I'm telling you this is because the two biggest forces, the two biggest countries, the two biggest economies in the world are both very clearly telling us what they plan to do. They're giving us the roadmap. And if we're prepared to take the time to read it, we'll know where they're going. What's actually happening is this, that we live at a moment in history where the existing systems, the systems that we live in the West, mainly democratic capitalism, in the East and Russia and India, a more socialist, even communist view of the way that we can put a country, a world together that delivers a better life for all. But whichever system it is, whichever country you look at, almost all of the systems are failing to deliver. I don't know about you. I'm finding it harder than I thought it would be. I'm in my 50s. I've got 3 kids. They've gone through school. I've got a great job that's very stable. I love what I do. But it's harder than I thought it would be. By the way, I've got parents who are not leaving me an inheritance. I'm needing to help them. All my black friends are laughing at me because they say, hey, you white guys are suddenly discovering black tax, as I've got to help my own parents. My oldest daughter, 26 years old, still not off the payroll. It's not her fault. I'm not criticizing Amy at all. It's the nature of the world. More than 30% of 25-year-olds are still reliant on their parents. That's a global statistic, not just a South African one. The system isn't working. And in our lifetimes, in the next 5 to 10 years, new systems will emerge. That's part of what's driving the chaos. But if we understand what's driving that chaos, I think it can bring us just a little bit of calm. It's not that South Africa's gone crazy and all hell's been broken loose here. It's all over the place. It's not that everything's broken. It's just that the old systems are no longer fit for purpose and something new is trying to emerge. It's not that there's complete randomness in the system. It's that we are moving to a new system. And if you're dealing with long-term wealth management and if you're dealing with retirement planning, you kind of got to get your head around that. But when you do, you realize it's not quite as crazy as you thought it was. Right, but now let me get to my second point, which is technology. We live in a world dominated by technology, and we call it artificial intelligence or generative AI these days. That's ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, what the others, Bard, Claude, Bing, whatever version you use, or Meta AI. Unfortunately, it's not artificial intelligence. It's not even close to artificial intelligence. It's actually quite a dumb system. It is the most powerful tool we've ever created, but it isn't intelligent. I want to prove this to you. Now, as you're watching this webinar, just grab whatever device you've got that's got a generative AI feature on it. So your easiest way to do this is open WhatsApp, and down in the bottom corner of WhatsApp, there's a little circle. And if you click on that, that opens up Meta's AI system. And that will allow you to generate text or images. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you, while I'm talking, to see if you can, using ChatGPT or Copilot or Midjourney, whatever you want, see if you can generate a picture of somebody writing in a journal with their left hand. Okay, so literally this picture, okay? So you just say, imagine or create a picture for me. Now, don't do a Google image search. You could find this picture. I want you to generate it using one of these generators. Now, you are not going to be able to do this. I can pretty much 100% guarantee you can't do this. And while you're trying, I'll explain why. But to do that, I have to tell you that I'm a little bit disappointed with technology. I'll be honest. I use an iPhone. I'm a huge Apple fan, and I've got an iPhone 13. I haven't upgraded it for a number of years because I haven't really found a reason to upgrade. Last year in September, they came out with the iPhone 16. And I thought maybe this is the year I'm going to finally upgrade my phone. And I'm a bit of a nerd this way. I love technology. And so I actually literally stayed up late into the night to live stream the iPhone 16 launch. And they said there are 3 new amazing features to the iPhone 16. The first of those is that it has an extra button. An extra button. Wow. Well, tell me, what does this button do? I mean, it's the iPhone 16. Surely if I click this button, all the traffic will disappear. They won't just tell me there's a traffic jam. It will clear the traffic for me. Maybe not. If I press the button, maybe it will cure cancer. I mean, it's 2025 already. These things should be curing cancer. But no, what did that extra button on the iPhone 16 do? It accessed the camera slightly faster. Do you want to know how fast I can access the camera on the 13? That was it. Access the camera. On the iPhone 16, no, it wasn't a wow. Anyway, the second thing that was supposed to be a wow was that the camera was slightly better. The iPhone 13's camera, 3 multiple lenses, I don't even know what the megapixels are, but it's way more than I need. And the 16 is a little bit more than that. So I've gone from more than I need to even more than I need. Okay, well, at least the third thing must be super smart, right? And the third innovation, the third revolutionary change, and I'm not joking with you, I'm not making this go and watch the launch event, was that it came in purple. I'm sure they didn't call it purple. This is probably Steve Jobs' nose hair color. I don't know, whatever color they called it. But literally, those were the three innovations. Are they joking? Are they joking? Now, you might think, hang on, what's just happened to this webinar? I thought Graeme was very upbeat about the future. He looks like a guy who knows his technology. I'm not against technology. I am against the hype. The hype that says suddenly we've got artificial intelligence and we should be all scared that it's going to take over the world and it's going to do things to us that we can't believe. Have you been able to get a picture of somebody writing in a journal with their left hand yet? Let me explain why you haven't, because I bet you haven't. By the way, in case you want to try this, ask it for a picture of a full glass of red wine. But when I say full, like I mean full to the top. It will give you a glass that's half full only. Ask it to give you a picture of an old-fashioned clock and tell it what time should be on the clock face. And whatever time you tell it, it will give you 10 to 10. Irrespective of what you ask. Here is why. It doesn't actually understand what you're asking. I won't go into the detail, but if you are a technology nerd like I am, generative AI works with something called tokenization. It doesn't actually understand the words that you are speaking. It takes your words, it turns them into, let's call them emojis, little images, tokens. It then puts them into it's not a database, it's an engine of every piece of information that has ever been known, right? And it then takes that information and it basically just uses a probabilistic engine to try and predict the end of the sentence. Okay, that's a lot of words. To just say it doesn't actually understand what you're saying. It didn't know that you asked for a left hand. It doesn't know what a left hand is. It doesn't know what a journal is. It just knows that when you ask it to give it a picture of somebody writing in a journal, it can go and find thousands of pictures that have got that label. It doesn't know what that picture is, but it knows that that label is. And you know what? 99.9% of all pictures on the internet of people writing are right-handed. Apologies to you left-handers, you know that you are a minority in the world. So it cannot produce a left-handed picture, even if you push it and force it to. 99.9% of all pictures of wine glasses are half full, because you don't really fill a wine glass to the top. But if you ask it to do it, it doesn't know what you're asking. By the way, just recently, about 3 weeks ago, ChatGPT upgraded its ability to put text into images. I hope you can see this on your screen. I asked it to put in the text of the journal, "It was the best of times." Look what it did. It literally just wrote, "It's the best of times," like it's an alien who doesn't know what's actually going on and it just dumps the text there. So then I said, no, hang on. This is supposed to be upside down, the other way around, facing the person writing it and only on the one side. And then finally, it just flipped the whole picture and gave me gobbledygook again. Okay, that's a long way round to say to you, AI, generative AI, all these apps are amazing, but they have a very limited application. They are brilliant for the things they have been designed to do, which is to take everything we already know and finish your sentence. But when you start to use it to try and predict something or make a values judgment, or even worse, try and have a moral outcome, it's as likely to give you nonsense as it is to give you fact. Let me call it hallucinations. Let me maybe approach this a different way. If you could have all the data, imagine you could have all the data for all of your clients, everything they ever do, all the things that they do in their lives. What would you do with that data? That's essentially what we should be thinking about when we think about AI. It's just a big database, which allows us to spot patterns and come up with insights around those patterns. By the way, I mentioned my daughters. When I ask them this question, and when I ask young people, they come up with really cool ideas. I think the best idea I've heard from my daughters and their friends is, if I had all the data in the whole world, what would I do with it? I'd create a chat GPT that would allow us to understand what animals are saying, and even speak to animals and let them understand what we are saying. And by the way, this is where it becomes a little bit difficult to do my job, because I gave this example, and a few weeks ago somebody came to me and said, they've already done it. Apparently, at a Canadian university called Dalhousie, they've actually created, can you believe this, chicken GPT. They genuinely believe they've got a model that allows them to understand what chickens are saying with all that noise. And if the chickens are hot or cold or hungry or thirsty, they can understand what the chickens are saying. Can you believe it? Well, I can believe it, because that's kind of the promise of AI. It's a massive pattern recognition machine. But I prefer to think of it as IA, not AI, not artificial intelligence, but rather intelligent assistance. And here's the cool thing for you. I don't think that AI is going to replace us. I don't think that AI will replace financial advisors or wealth managers or whatever label you use. But I think that wealth managers who use AI well will replace the wealth managers who don't. That's where we find ourselves. Not in this crazy, chaotic world with massive new intelligence that nobody understands, that's going to change everything, but rather we've built ourselves a remarkable tool that's brilliant for the things it was designed to do. And if you know how to use it well, it will give you a competitive edge. It's not quite as chaotic and crazy as it first appears. Final point, and I'm nearly done, is I think in all of this, what we really need is, rather than fear or nervousness or just freezing in the face of chaos and change, we need to rather, maybe even paradoxically, realize that in the middle of all of this craziness is the greatest opportunity in the history of the world. Two simple examples. In South Africa, we've been dealing with load shedding for 15 years, by the way. But it was only about 2 or 3 years ago, when we got to whatever stage 8 it was, that everybody just said, okay, enough. We now have to do something. And over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been the country that has had the most increase in solar installations of any country in the world, by the way. It's absolutely astounding what's happened. And now, of course, we've been able to deal with load shedding largely, actually, not because Eskom sorted themselves out. They did a bit, but mainly because we don't need as much capacity from Eskom as we used to, because we've put solar panels on our roofs. We looked at the chaos and we did what every decent South African ever does, which is to say, okay, we'll do something. Make a plan, make a plan. We do. Another maybe more recent example, Donald Trump and his trade war with Canada. The Canadians responded like Canadians do, to say, okay, if you want to fight with us, we just won't buy your stuff. Literally, Canadian stores took American liquor, in particular, whiskey and wine, off of their shelves. Do you know what happened? 3 or 4 wine farmers from the Western Cape were on a plane the very next day flying to Toronto to go and meet with some of these supermarkets to say, would you like some decent wine and whiskey and brandy? We can sort you out. In every chaotic moment, there is opportunity. In every piece of craziness, there's an opportunity to find some calm. And what we all need to do is actively seek out that reframing of how we think, so that we can see the world, yes, not ignoring all of the change and disruption, but recognizing that, in fact, there is a bit of a map and it can be followed. And then probably in the context of curate and in the context of wealth management and in the context of investments, we need to just bring a little bit of that calm to the way we deal with our investments. You can ride the ups and the downs, and if you're lucky, you can make a little bit of money. But that's not really how we build wealth, is it? We hold the line, we go the course. And I suppose probably the best thing we do is partner with people who spend their lives, every waking moment, sometimes even their dreams, thinking about this map and where it's taking us, and making wise, curated decisions about where we go next. We've got to build a group of people we trust, keep our eyes open, and hold the course. That's how I think we craft calm in the midst of chaos. Thank you.